I'll never forget the day Clara told me she was going on a date. It wasn't like any other conversation we'd ever had. I'd just come home from work, tired, like usual, and there she was, sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Her hair was messy, her oversized sweater on, looking so casual. But something felt off. Without even looking at me, she just dropped it. "So, I'm going on a date tonight." I froze. I didn't know how to respond. This wasn't a casual thing. A date? She was my wife. This wasn't some random dinner. I managed to get out. "What do you mean, a date?" She shrugged, like it was no big deal. "With Jason." Jason. I'd known about him. Some guy from her work. She'd been texting him more than I liked recently, but this was different. I could feel a knot in my stomach form at the sound of his name. "Jason." I repeated, trying to keep my cool. "The guy from your work?" "Yeah," she said, finally looking up at me. "We've been talking. He gets me, Adam. You don't get me like he does." I blinked, my head spinning. "I don't get you?" My voice wavered just a bit, but I caught myself. She sighed, setting her phone down. "It's not about you, okay? It's just, I don't feel alive anymore. I'm not saying I don't love you, but I need something more. I'm not happy the way I want to be." Her words hit harder than I expected. This wasn't just about a little excitement or a phase. This was something deeper, something that cut straight to the core of our marriage. I wasn't angry yet, just completely confused and hurt. "So, you think going on a date with another guy is going to fix that? What do you think you'll find with him?" I asked, trying to stay calm, though the words tasted bitter. She gave me a look, like I was overreacting. "It's not about replacing you. It's about exploring something I feel like I've been missing. This isn't going to change our marriage. In fact, I think it could make us stronger. Trust me." I stood there, unable to wrap my head around what she was saying. Stronger? How could sleeping with another man make our marriage stronger? I tried to push it out of my mind to think logically. "When are you seeing him?" I asked, feeling numb now. "Tonight," she said, casually. "Don't wait up." That was it. She gave me a quick kiss on the cheek and walked out the door like everything was fine. She was going to see him. I stood there, watching her car pull out of the driveway, and I felt this hollow emptiness inside me. Something in me snapped. If she was making this choice, then I would make one too. I wasn't going to beg her to stay, not when she'd already made up her mind. I was done feeling helpless. It was time for a change. And I knew exactly how I'd make her face the consequences of her betrayal. After Clara left that night, I didn't immediately confront her. I stayed quiet, letting the hurt fester. But something inside me shifted. She thought she could walk out, go on a date with Jason, and I'd just sit back and take it? No chance. I couldn't let her get away with this. I wasn't going to explode or beg though. That wasn't me. Instead, I started thinking, how could I make her truly face what she was doing? How could I make her understand the weight of her betrayal? Then it hit me, a reality show. I'd seen an ad for a show called The Truth Unmasked. Couples are secretly filmed, forced to face hidden temptations, and tested to see if their relationships can survive. It was the perfect setup. If Clara wanted excitement and novelty, I was going to give her something she'd never expect. I wasn't interested in playing the victim. I wanted to expose her, make her see the consequences of her actions. I spent hours researching the show, and it wasn't hard to find fake producers to reach out to. I crafted a pitch that sounded legit. This show was about testing relationships, bringing couples closer, dealing with temptations, and so on. I made it sound like a golden opportunity, something too good to miss. When I pitched it to Clara, she didn't hesitate. She was always up for something new, something adventurous. The idea of being on a reality show seemed to excite her. I told her they'd specifically chosen us because we had an interesting story, and that the challenges would be fun. Nothing too intense, just a way to explore what we really wanted from each other. It felt like a win-win, at least from her perspective. "You're serious? This could actually be fun," Clara said, her face lighting up. I could see her imagining herself being filmed, enjoying the novelty, maybe even the attention. "I think it could be good for us," I said, keeping my voice calm and casual. It's a safe space to explore whatever you feel you're missing. We can get to know each other better. She was sold. Okay, let's do it, she agreed without a second thought. What she didn't know was that everything was already set up. I had the producers in place, the tasks planned, and hidden cameras ready. Jason would be right in the middle of it all. I knew she wouldn't see it coming, and I couldn't wait to watch her squirm. Clara thought she was getting a chance to have fun and explore her desires. But I wasn't going to let her have her cake and eat it too. If she wanted excitement, I'd give it to her, but I'd make sure she understood the consequences of her choices. The ball was rolling now, and I was ready to show Clara exactly what she had done, and make her confront it head-on. The first task arrived a few days after Clara agreed to the show. She had no idea it was all a setup. I had made sure everything was discreet, professional, just enough to keep her excited but not suspicious. She was so eager to play along, to explore, and it made me sick to watch her so naive. The challenge came through a mysterious email from the production team, explaining that Clara had to meet someone and report back on her feelings. Simple enough, right? Except that someone was Jason, the guy she'd been flirting with for weeks, the man she thought I didn't know about. I almost felt sorry for her as I handed her the email to read. Looks like you have to meet with Jason, I said, trying to sound casual. They say it's part of the experiment, like exploring a new connection. I guess they want you to talk to him and see where things stand. Clara glanced at me, a little hesitant, but the excitement in her eyes didn't fade. It's fine, Adam. It's just a task. A part of the show. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not replacing you. I didn't respond. I just watched her. I could feel the weight of her lies hanging between us, but I wasn't going to let that stop me. If she wanted to be part of this game, then she'd play by my rules. Just be honest, Clara, I said softly. Let's see how it goes. She agreed to meet Jason that afternoon, not even realizing she was being watched. I had planted cameras, hidden, discreet, so I could track every word, every interaction. I wanted to see it all. I wanted her to see it, too, but at the right moment. I wanted her to feel the weight of her own decisions. Later that evening, she came back, her face a little flushed. So, how did it go? I asked, trying to sound casual but knowing that I already had the answer. Nothing happened, she said quickly, almost too quickly. It was just a conversation. Nothing more. But I could tell something was off. There was a shift in her tone, a defensiveness I hadn't heard before. She was trying to convince me, but I wasn't the fool she thought I was. I knew her better than she knew herself by this point. I didn't push it, though. I just nodded, pretending to buy it. Good. I'm glad. You seem happy, though. You sure everything's fine? Clara hesitated before answering. Yeah. Just a little weird, you know? I didn't expect him to be so forward. But it was nothing. Really. I couldn't help but smile a little inside. She thought it was just a weird experiment. But I knew better. I had everything I needed, and Clara had just stepped deeper into the trap. The next task came a few days after that. It was time for her to record a video of herself, talking about how she felt about Jason, the show, and what she thought about the whole thing. The producers had suggested it as a way for her to process her emotions and for me to hear her thoughts directly. When Clara sat down to record it, I could see her nervousness creeping in. She wasn't sure what to say. She couldn't hide from the truth anymore. And I watched, knowing this was just the beginning. The challenge wasn't just about testing our relationship. It was about her relationship with the truth. And I was ready to make her face it. The video Clara recorded was painful to watch. She sat nervously in front of the camera, trying to control her words. The producers had asked her a few simple questions. How do you feel about the experiment? What have you learned? And how do you feel about Jason? Her voice faltered when she spoke about Jason, and that was all I needed to know. It's just complicated, she said, avoiding the camera. It's not about replacing Adam. It's about figuring out what I really need. I've been feeling stuck for a while now, putting everyone else's needs ahead of mine. And Jason, he gets me. He's exciting. But I'm not sure what to do with that. Her words hit me like a punch. She wasn't just trying to convince herself. She was trying to convince me too. And it hurt. Hearing her say Jason gets her in ways I didn't was a blow I wasn't prepared for, but I kept my expression neutral. As Clara finished the video, I could see the guilt creeping in. She was torn, caught between what she wanted and what she was risking. But I wasn't about to let her off easy. She had no idea yet how deep she was getting into this, but she would. That night, I sat down with her, acting like everything was normal. She was scrolling through her phone on the couch, avoiding my eyes. I asked casually, "Did you feel better after recording the video?" She nodded, but it didn't feel genuine. "Yeah, I guess. It helps to get it out." "Good," I said, keeping my voice calm. "But just remember why we're doing this. It's not about just exploring feelings. We're doing this for us, for our marriage." Clara hesitated, then looked at me with a defensive look in her eyes. "I'm not playing games, Adam. I'm just conflicted. I didn't expect to feel this way." I felt a tightness in my chest, but I kept it together. "I get it," I said. "But you need to understand this isn't a game. You're making choices now. Choices that matter." She bit her lip, looking down at her hands. "I know. I'm just confused. I didn't think it'd be this hard." And there it was, her admission. She was emotionally invested in this. Jason wasn't just a passing interest. He was someone who had filled a void she couldn't even see. She was caught up in this new connection, and she was justifying it to herself. I wanted to shout, to demand answers, but I didn't. I stayed quiet. The more she spoke, the more I realized how deep she was getting into this. She wasn't just exploring herself. She was moving away from me, piece by piece. I knew the next task would push her even further, but I was ready. With each challenge, Clara was digging herself deeper into a hole she couldn't climb out of. And I was going to be right there, watching her fall, waiting to show her exactly what she had risked. The next challenge came fast. Another email from the production team asked Clara to plan a romantic evening with Jason, just the two of them, and then record her thoughts afterward. It was supposed to deepen their emotional connection. The email said it would be a way for Clara to explore her feelings, and I knew it was the perfect moment to push her even further. When Clara read the email, her face lit up with excitement. "Looks like I get to plan something special for Jason," she said, practically glowing. I could already see it. She wasn't thinking about me. She was thinking about the night ahead. I tried to keep my voice steady. "You're really going to go through with this?" Clara looked up, a little defensive. "It's just a task, Adam. It doesn't mean anything. It's part of the experiment." I didn't argue. Instead, I gave her a nod, trying to hide the anger that was simmering inside. If she thought this was just an innocent task, she was wrong. The night of the date, Clara spent hours getting ready, choosing an outfit she'd never wear for me. She was practically buzzing with excitement, and it made my stomach turn. When she kissed me goodbye, her lips lingered for a second too long, and I saw the flicker of guilt in her eyes. But she didn't say anything. "Have fun," I told her, my voice colder than I meant. I spent the next few hours waiting. I knew she was with Jason, but I needed more than just her word for it. I wasn't trusting my gut anymore. I needed proof. I had put a tracker on her car. It was something I wasn't proud of, but I couldn't ignore the need to know exactly what was happening. I followed her to a restaurant on the edge of town, watching as she and Jason walked in, laughing together. They looked way too comfortable. I didn't stay long, but I didn't need to see more. The image of them walking in together, laughing, holding hands, was all I needed. She was lost in this, and she didn't even realize how deep she was in. When Clara came home later that night, I acted like nothing had happened. She seemed giddy, almost too high on energy for midnight. She kissed me hello, but there was something about her that felt distant, almost like she was hiding something. "So, how was it?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "It was amazing," she said, still breathless. "Jason really knows how to make an evening special." I smiled, even though I could feel the fury building inside me. "I'm glad you had fun." She went to bed soon after, but I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything I'd seen, everything I knew. Clara had made her choice. She was already slipping away, and she hadn't even realized how much she was exposing herself. Tomorrow would be the turning point. I was done letting her control the narrative. It was time for her to see the consequences of her choices. The next morning, Clara woke up like nothing had changed. She was full of energy, talking about her day as if everything was normal. She had no idea that I was about to push her to the edge. "Did you sleep well?" she asked, bright-eyed, as she made coffee. I forced a smile. "Yeah, fine." But I hadn't slept. Not at all. I couldn't ignore what I'd seen, her excitement over her night with Jason, her lies, and the way she was slipping further away from me. I didn't confront her yet. I couldn't just act on impulse. I had a plan, and I was going to make her face the consequences. After breakfast, I grabbed my phone and made a call to the fake producers of the reality show. I told them it was time to escalate things, to set up the final reveal. Clara still thought this was some innocent experiment, but it was time to show her the truth, and show it hard. I was done being patient. Clara looked up from her phone when I told her the big reveal was happening sooner than expected. "Wait, isn't it supposed to be next week?" "No, it's today. They want to wrap things up," I said, keeping my voice steady. "They want to see how far we've come." She perked up, clearly excited. "Oh wow. I'm really looking forward to it." She hurried to pack, not noticing the coldness creeping into my chest as I watched her. We got in the car, and I drove us to a luxury hotel. Clara kept chatting about how fun everything had been, how she felt like she was discovering new things about herself. I couldn't stand it. She didn't realize the weight of what she was doing, but I was about to make her face it. We arrived at the hotel, and I led her through the lobby, then down a corridor into an empty ballroom. She stopped, confused. "What are we doing here?" I didn't answer. Instead, I hit play on a projector, and the screen filled with footage of her and Jason. The dates, the flirtations, the moments where she'd opened up about feeling stuck with me and finding excitement in Jason. Clara's face drained of color as she watched. She looked from the screen to me, her voice trembling. "Adam, I didn't." I cut her off. "You didn't think, Clara. You didn't think about me or about us. You were too busy chasing something new. But now you have to face the truth." The video played on, showing her holding hands with Jason, laughing, clearly lost in this new world. I watched her crumble as the reality of what she'd done hit her. There was nowhere to hide now. I handed her an envelope. "This isn't a reality show, Clara. This is about you seeing the consequences of your choices. You have a decision to make." Inside the envelope were divorce papers and a letter where I laid out the pain, the betrayal, and everything I had tried to ignore. "This is your choice, Clara," I said, my voice cold. "You can fight for us, or you can walk away. But know this, whatever you choose, it ends here. This is where the game stops." She stared at the papers, then back at me, her face twisted with guilt and confusion. I wasn't waiting for her to apologize anymore. She had to make her choice, and I was done waiting for it. Clara stood frozen, clutching the envelope with trembling hands, her face a mask of shock and guilt. The weight of the divorce papers and my letter hit her harder than I expected. For a moment, the room was silent, the only sound being her shallow, uneven breaths. "Adam," she finally whispered, her voice cracking. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I never wanted to hurt you." I kept my composure, my voice calm but cold. "You didn't mean for it to go this far?" "Clara, every text, every date, every time you chose Jason over me was a decision you made. You didn't think about me or our marriage, and now you have to face what you've done." Her eyes filled with tears, and she shook her head as if trying to make it all go away. I was confused, Adam. I felt lost. I thought I was just figuring things out, not ruining everything. "Please, I'm begging you to believe me." I folded my arms, my expression unchanging. "Believe you? After everything I've seen, after everything you've done? Clara, this isn't just about you feeling lost. This is about betrayal. Your choices." She stepped closer, her voice desperate. "I'll end it with Jason. I'll cut him off completely. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. Please, Adam, I know I made mistakes, but I love you. I'll prove it to you." Her words hung in the air, heavy with emotion, but I wasn't ready to let her off the hook so easily. "Clara, love isn't just words. Love is actions, commitment, and respect. All of which you threw away the moment you decided I wasn't enough. She broke down, tears streaming down her face. You're right. You're absolutely right. I was selfish, stupid, and reckless. But please don't let this be the end of us. I'll fight for our marriage if you'll give me the chance. I stayed silent for a long moment, staring at the woman I thought I knew. A part of me wanted to forgive her, to believe we could fix this for the sake of everything we'd built together. But another part of me knew the damage might be irreparable. Finally, I spoke, my voice steady but resolute. One chance, Clara. That's all I'm giving you. No more lies. No more excuses. If you want to save this marriage, you're going to have to prove that you deserve it. She nodded quickly, as though clinging to a lifeline. I will, Adam. I swear, I'll do whatever it takes. I turned away, my emotions a tangled mess. Whether or not we could rebuild what was broken, I didn't know. But for now, the choice was hers to make, and the work was hers to do. The days after Clara's confession were a blur. She tried to show me she was committed, canceling plans with Jason, deleting his number, and showing me the texts where she ended it with him. But despite her efforts, the tension between us never faded. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was broken, and I didn't know if it could be fixed. That first night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head. How had we gotten here? Clara seemed genuinely sorry, but words didn't mean much anymore. It was her actions that mattered. And I wasn't sure she was ready to prove she could change. I needed space. I began pulling away, emotionally and physically. When Clara reached for me, I'd pull back. I wasn't doing it to punish her. I just didn't know how to let her back in. One evening, Clara asked if we could talk. We sat at the kitchen table, and she looked at me, desperate. I know I've hurt you, she said, but I'm begging you. Give me a chance to show you I can be the woman you need. I looked at her, heart heavy. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. I need time. I'll wait, she whispered, her voice breaking. I nodded, though I wasn't sure how long I could wait. Time. That's all I needed. But how much time? I didn't know. The following weeks were a mix of awkward silences and forced attempts at normalcy. Clara tried to talk to me, asking if we could go out or do things together, but I couldn't engage. The distance between us only grew. Then came the night that changed everything. We were watching a movie when she reached for my hand. For the first time in weeks, I didn't pull away. For a brief moment, I felt the connection again, but then the reality of what had happened hit me. I can't do this, Clara, I said, my voice shaky. I can't pretend everything is okay. You've broken my trust. She cried. I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. I need you to prove it, I said. I can't do this alone anymore. She nodded. I will, Adam. I swear I will. And for the first time, I believed her. We started rebuilding, slowly. Counseling, honest conversations, trying to reconnect. It wasn't perfect, but we were trying. It wasn't the end of our story, but it was a turning point. The weeks that followed were a mix of progress and setbacks. Clara and I began going to counseling, something I never thought we'd need but quickly realized was essential. At first, it felt like we were just going through the motions, sitting across from each other, talking about things we'd never really addressed before. The trust that had been shattered wasn't something you could patch up with a few sessions and a handful of apologies. But slowly, I started to see small changes in her. She was open, vulnerable in a way she'd never been before. She admitted that she'd taken me for granted, that she didn't realize how deep her actions would cut. I wanted to believe her. Part of me did. But the other part, the part that had been betrayed, wasn't ready to forgive that easily. It wasn't just about Jason anymore. It was about the way Clara had drifted away from me, emotionally, long before the affair even started. She'd been lost in her own dissatisfaction, her own desire for something different. She was trying to put the pieces back together, but I still felt like I was walking on thin ice. Every time she touched me, I wanted to pull away. I wasn't sure if I could ever feel the same way again. One night, we sat down to dinner, the first time we'd really had a normal evening in weeks. Clara asked me, cautiously, if I thought we could ever get back to where we were. The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of everything we'd been through. I looked at her, unsure of how to answer. Could we ever get back to that place? Could I ever trust her completely again? I don't know, I said honestly. I want to believe we can, but I need more than just words, Clara. I need time. I need to see that you're not going to run the minute things get hard again. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I'm not going anywhere, Adam. I'm here, and I'll keep fighting for us. I'll do whatever it takes. And for the first time, I believed her. The road ahead would be long and uncertain, but maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild what we'd lost. One step at a time. As the weeks passed, the tension between Clara and me slowly began to ease, but the weight of what had happened was always there, lingering just beneath the surface. We were still going to counseling, and I could see that Clara was trying. She was making an effort to rebuild the trust she had broken, and I couldn't deny that she seemed sincere. But there were moments, quiet, private moments, where I questioned if we could ever truly go back to the way things were. The hardest part was when we were alone together, just the two of us. There were times when Clara would reach for me, her hand gently brushing mine, and I'd freeze, unsure of how to respond. I wanted to feel the warmth of her touch again, to feel that connection we once shared, but it was like I couldn't let myself. Every time she smiled, I couldn't shake the memory of her lying to me, of how easily she had walked away from us. But then there were small moments, small victories, that made me think there was hope. One night, we went out for dinner, just the two of us. The conversation flowed easily, and I found myself laughing at things she said, remembering why I had fallen in love with her in the first place. We talked about things beyond the affair, about our plans for the future, our dreams, our family. It felt normal. It felt like we were finding our way back. Later that night, we sat together on the couch, and Clara looked at me with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "Do you think we're getting there?" she asked softly, her voice almost pleading. I took a deep breath, unsure of how to answer. The truth was, I didn't know. There were days when I felt like we could make it, like we could rebuild and find something even stronger than before. And then there were days when I wondered if it was all too far gone, if I could ever fully forgive her, if I could ever trust her the way I once did. "I don't know, Clara," I said honestly. "I want to believe we can. But it's going to take time. I can't promise you that everything will go back to normal. But I'm willing to try. If you are." Her eyes softened, and she nodded, her hand reaching for mine again. This time, I didn't pull away. I let her hold it, the warmth of her touch reminding me of the love we once had. It wasn't perfect. We weren't perfect. But maybe, just maybe, we could find a way forward. The road ahead was still uncertain, and I knew there would be more hard days. But for the first time in months, I felt like we were on the right path. One step at a time. Together. The weeks that followed felt like a slow but steady rebuilding process. Clara and I were working on us, little by little, but it wasn't without its challenges. Some days felt like a fresh start, like we could truly begin again, and other days felt like we were back to square one. The trust one had once given her so freely was now a fragile thing, something I had to protect, and it felt like I was walking on eggshells, afraid of what might happen if I let it slip away again. We continued going to counseling, and I was starting to feel like it was helping. I could see the changes in Clara, how much she was trying to show me that she was different, that she was committed to our marriage. She made an effort to be more present, to talk about her feelings, to let me in. But there were times when I caught myself withdrawing, keeping parts of myself closed off, afraid to be vulnerable again. The hardest part was the lingering doubt. I couldn't just forget what she had done, and even though she was trying, the past was never far behind us. Every time she went out, every time she took her phone into another room, I couldn't help but wonder if she was hiding something. I knew it wasn't healthy to keep thinking that way, but I couldn't turn off the fear that had taken root in me. But there were moments when she would do something small but significant, that reminded me why I'd loved her in the first place. Like the time she cooked me dinner, something she knew I loved, and we sat together, talking about silly things, laughing, and sharing little pieces of our lives like we used to. It felt good. And when she kissed me that night, it felt real, like a promise that we were going to be okay. One evening, after a long day, we sat on the porch, watching the sunset together. It was peaceful, quiet, and for the first time in months, I felt a sense of calm that I hadn't known I'd been missing. Clara turned to me, her voice soft. "Do you think we're going to make it, Adam?" she asked, her eyes searching mine for an answer. I took a deep breath, looking out at the horizon before meeting her gaze. "I want to believe we can," I said honestly. "But it's not going to be easy. We still have a lot to work through. It'll take time." She nodded, her hand gently resting on mine. "I'm willing to fight for us. I know I messed up, but I love you, Adam. I'll do whatever it takes." And in that moment, I believed her again. It wasn't a perfect resolution. It wasn't a magic fix. But it was a start. We still had a long road ahead, and I wasn't sure where it would take us, but for the first time in a while, I felt like there was hope. A fragile hope, but hope nonetheless. The next steps would be hard. But together, we might just find a way to heal. The peace between Clara and me was fragile, but for the first time in months, I felt like there was hope for us. We were finding a new rhythm, learning to communicate better, and slowly rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. But with that sense of hope came a lingering uncertainty, a quiet fear that one misstep could undo everything. I could see Clara trying. She was more present, more attentive, and more open with me than she had been in a long time. But I was still guarded. Every time she went out, I'd wonder, what if? What if she slipped again? What if all this effort was just a facade? It wasn't that I didn't want to trust her again. It was that I couldn't afford to be blind to the possibility of another betrayal. But the thing about healing is that it's not a straight line. Sometimes it felt like we were moving forward, and other times it felt like we were stuck, circling the same painful truths. I couldn't pretend that things were normal. I still had moments of intense anger, moments when I remembered the weight of her betrayal and the hurt it caused. It wasn't something that just went away, no matter how hard I tried to let it go. One evening, Clara and I sat down after dinner, the conversation lighter than usual. We talked about our day, about the little things, the kind of conversations we used to have before everything fell apart. I almost let myself believe that we could be normal again. But as the conversation shifted, Clara's tone grew more serious. "Adam," she said quietly, looking at me with those searching eyes I had come to know so well, "I know I've hurt you, and I know it's going to take time for you to forgive me. But I just want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. I'm committed to us. You don't have to doubt me." I looked at her, the words sitting heavy on my chest. The truth was, I still wasn't sure if I could fully let go of the past. Every apology, every gesture of love felt like a small step forward, but the doubt lingered. It was a constant weight, reminding me that no matter how much Clara tried, the foundation of our marriage had been cracked beyond repair. "I want to believe you, Clara," I said, my voice hoarse. "But I'm not sure how. I don't know if I can just forget everything that happened." She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I understand. I just want to show you that I can be the woman you need. I can't change the past, but I can fight for our future." The silence between us felt like an eternity. I didn't know how to respond. The truth was, I didn't know if I could forgive her completely, not yet. But I also knew that if I didn't try, I'd lose the chance to rebuild something, whether with her or on my own. "I'm not ready to let go of everything just yet," I said, my voice steady. "But I'm willing to take it one day at a time. If you are." "I am," Clara whispered, reaching for my hand. "I'll do whatever it takes." And just like that, we were at a crossroads. The road ahead was still uncertain, still fraught with risks and challenges. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't alone on it. Together, we could try to rebuild. Together, we could move forward, even if it was one painful step at a time. We had a long road ahead. But maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. The months after Clara's confession were a mix of progress and setbacks. We were trying, but there were days when I still couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Clara was doing everything she could to rebuild the trust between us. Small gestures, open conversations, and constant apologies. But the damage done to our relationship was too deep to fix in a short time. There were nights when things felt normal again. Clara would plan a surprise dinner or organize a date night, and for a moment, I'd feel that warmth, that spark we had before everything fell apart. But just as quickly, the doubts would creep back in. What if she's hiding something? What if this is just temporary? It wasn't paranoia, It was self-preservation. I couldn't ignore the fear that Clara could slip again, no matter how much she seemed committed to us. Counseling helped in some ways. Clara was more open than I'd ever seen her, and we started to have honest, painful conversations about what went wrong. She apologized constantly, and part of me wanted to believe her. But the other part, the part that had been hurt so deeply, still held back, afraid to trust her completely. One evening, after a quiet dinner, Clara said something that hit me hard. "Adam, I need you to know I'm doing everything I can to make this right. But I need you to trust me. I can't keep proving myself every single day. I need you to believe I'm committed to us. I need you to stop holding back." Her words stung. She was right. I had been holding back. I'd been afraid to let myself fully engage with her again, afraid to trust her. But I wasn't sure I could. I wasn't sure if I could ever fully forgive her. "I don't know if I can," I said, my voice low. "It's not that I don't want to. It's just, I don't know how to let go of everything. I can't forget what happened." Clara's face dropped, and she looked like she was about to cry. "I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking you to give me a chance. I'm asking you to trust that I'm not going to hurt you again. I'm not him, Adam. I'm here. I'm trying." I wanted to believe her. But every time I thought about the betrayal, the lies, and the hurt, I couldn't help but feel that things would never be the same. "I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again," I admitted. "I want to. But I don't know how." She took my hand gently. "I understand, Adam. But I'm not giving up. And I hope you don't either." And that was the hardest part. I didn't know if I could let go of the past. I didn't know if I could ever feel the same way about her. But I wasn't ready to walk away either. We were at another crossroads, stuck between what we were and what we could be. I didn't have all the answers, but I realized that maybe moving forward wasn't about forgiving. It was about learning to trust again, one step at a time. The road ahead was still uncertain. Clara and I were still in the midst of rebuilding, and I wasn't sure if we were moving forward or just staying in place. Some days, it felt like we were making progress, while other days, it felt like we were slipping back into the same painful patterns. Trust, once shattered, didn't come back easily. We kept going to counseling, and I could see Clara trying. She'd started doing things differently, listening more, being more patient, more understanding. It wasn't perfect, but she was putting in the effort. But I was still struggling to let go of the past, still battling the nagging doubts that told me I couldn't trust her fully again. One afternoon, I found myself thinking back to the early days of our relationship, those moments when everything felt simple, when love was easy and untainted. I remembered how she would smile at me across a crowded room or hold my hand without hesitation. Back then, I never questioned it. But now, every touch felt like a test. Every kiss, every word, seemed like it came with an unspoken question. Is this real? Or is this another lie? It wasn't just about forgiveness. It was about rebuilding the foundation of who we were as a couple. And that was harder than I had imagined. There were moments when Clara would say the right thing or do something kind, and I would feel a flicker of the person I had fallen in love with. But then the weight of everything we'd gone through would come rushing back, and I'd feel distant again, unsure of whether I could ever feel the same way. One evening, Clara and I went for a walk in the park. It was the first time in a while that we had some quiet time just to ourselves, no distractions, no lingering thoughts of the past. We walked side by side, and for the first time in a long time, I found myself enjoying her company without the constant worry or doubt in the back of my mind. As we sat on a bench, Clara turned to me, her voice soft. "I know I've hurt you, and I know that I can't undo the past. But I'm here now, and I'm willing to work for us, to make things right. I want you to believe in me again, Adam." I looked at her, searching her face for the sincerity I wanted so desperately to see. For the first time in a while, I believed her. She was trying. She had been trying all along. But the truth was, it wasn't just her that needed to change. It was me too. "I'm not there yet," I said, my voice steady but tinged with the weight of the truth. "I don't know if I'll ever get to a place where it's like it was before. But I'm willing to try. I want to believe in us again, Clara. I just need time." Clara nodded, her eyes full of understanding. "I'll give you all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here, Adam. I'm not giving up on us. And for the first time in months, I felt a small sense of hope, the faintest glimmer of possibility. We still had a long road ahead, but maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to something real. One step at a time, together. The weeks that followed felt different. There was a shift between Clara and me. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. We were still rebuilding, but this time, it didn't feel like a constant battle. It felt more like a slow, steady progress, an understanding, a chance to get back to each other. I wasn't fully healed, but I was beginning to see that Clara wasn't the same person who had betrayed me. She was someone who was trying, someone who was no longer taking my trust for granted. We started talking more, really talking. We spoke about the past, about what happened and why, but we also talked about the future. We talked about our plans, our hopes, and the life we still wanted to build together. It wasn't easy, and there were days when the old pain would rise up, when the doubts would slip in. But we were learning how to handle those moments together, to speak about them rather than letting them fester. Clara was patient with me. When I would pull away, when the walls I'd built around myself would go up again, she didn't push me. She gave me space, but she never made me feel like I was alone. She made it clear that she was there, that she was willing to fight for us, but she also knew it had to be on my terms. It was a balance I hadn't expected, but it felt right. One evening, as we sat on the couch after dinner, Clara reached for my hand. Her touch was gentle, steady. "Do you think we're making progress?" she asked softly. I looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't just seeing the woman who had hurt me. I was seeing the woman who had stayed, who was fighting to rebuild. "I do," I said, my voice full of emotion I hadn't let myself feel in months. "I'm not there yet, Clara. But I can see us getting there. I can see us healing." She smiled, her eyes soft with relief. "That's all I want. Time to show you that we can make it. That we're worth it." In that moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't sure I could ever fully forget what happened, or fully trust her again. But I was starting to see that healing wasn't about erasing the past. It was about accepting it and choosing to move forward, together. There would still be hard days. The past would still come up, uninvited, and the old wounds would hurt. But the difference now was that we were facing it together. We were no longer alone in the struggle. It wasn't a perfect resolution. It wasn't a clean slate. But it was the beginning of a new chapter. And for the first time in months, I felt like we were on the right path. We still had a long way to go, but maybe, just maybe, we were going to be okay. Together. And that, for now, was enough.